her mic.
Who's a feminist?
Of course.
Yeah, you had to be told. I just came up with it on the
He's asking.
spot.
Okay, let's go around.
Yeah.
Yes,
I came up with it on the
but
spot.
my definition of feminism is equity, not equality. So equity as in fairness. That's
Not equality?
equality is different. You acknowledge the differences in genders,
Okay,
but
yeah,
equity
I
as
see.
in fairness and
Yeah,
opportunity
yeah,
and things like that. That's my.
I don't personally describe myself as a feminist.
I'm not a feminist.
My feminism means coming up with your questions on the spot.
No,
So-
Julie, keep
move
going.
on.
Keep
Are you a
going. Just
feminist?
ignore it. Keep going.
I'm thinking like
Are
a-
you a feminist? Yes or no?
Oh, like would I actually
Yes or no?
Yes or no, please.
describe myself as I mean, probably, but
Okay.
Yeah, okay, keep going.
But also,
No,
And another thing.
keep going.
If we're saying like feminism, like that little trademark, I would say no. Definitely not.
I would say the most recent variation of feminism, probably not, but I would agree
Fourth
with
wave,
Kirby's definition of feminism.
second wave, third
Probably.
wave.
Don't
Dude.
stop. Shh. Please.
Thank you, Robert.
You don't. Oh, sorry. I was just asking.
No.
No, I'm not a feminist. Did you answer? Yeah. Oh.
So it was just you, I think you, and
I think maybe, yeah.
and like ish.
Ish.
So what was your definition?
I said equity over equality, so it's equity as in fair treatment, but equality is different to me because it's not
Saying men and
recognizing
women are
the
the same.
differences between like women and men, right? So like for example, we can bring up the Olympics talk. I don't think women and men should compete because it should be equitable, not like equal, because like equality would be men and women
But
are
doesn't
competing.
equity mean that you're trying to get equal outcomes?
No, equity
No.
means
Equal
fairness, so that's why
Equity means you get this. You get a different. So I need a taller ladder
Anyone
to
else
look
wanna
over the
explain?
fence.
I remember that.
Hold on, shut your mouth. I need a taller ladder to look over the fence. So equity means you get the things you need to look over the
So
fence.
you
We
want-
don't
so you
necessarily
someone
get
tipped you
the
at the
fence.
beginning to mute
What?
someone's mic for 10 minutes.
I think we know who.
Has she been? Has she
think
been
we know who,
disruptive?
bro.
You know what?
She's my friend, and I'm on that.
What mic number is that? What mic number is that?
No.
Nick,
No, Julie, put it down, please.
Nick, that's a 10-minute mute.
Please.
Yo, Pico Steins, thank you for that. I got the mute microphone. That's no, but just put it on the table. Your mic,
It'll still be muted.
your mic is muted.
Are you saying that you think that women need special treatment so that the outcome, so they can play on an equal level, equal footing
No,
with
you
men?
misunderstood, of course.
Of course. I don't really misunderstand things.
So the misunderstanding
I think
is,
you actually did
for
in this case,
example,
though.
in like athletic terms, in the terms of the Olympics, yes, men outcompete women every time, and that's why when I say equitable, it should be in fairness of you acknowledge the differences in the genders, right? And so that's why women should be.
But if you're saying to make it equitable, wouldn't that mean that then you would have women start?
No,
they're
you would
competing on
take
the
out-
same level, but you would like give women an unfair advantage to make it
no,
equal.
equitable
because there's
is
inherent
fairness.
differences.
That's why I'm saying.
Do you mean like equitable means like they have their own league and it's only women because men would kind of dominate because they're built differently?
Do you understand
Like-
the Olympics?
Because I'm on your
now
side.
has
Yeah,
two
that's not okay.
Female, male,
Yeah.
right? There's two categories.
Like I'm not all for that one swimmer who's like,
Well,
oh,
don't
I really
think
suck in the men's
there's
division. Let me
anyone
just
saying that,
dominate
like,
all these
men
women.
and women should compete against each other in said Olympic
No.
sport. Like, I think that's sort of a bad
in
example.
some form of feminism.
Well, but
they
it's
are
what's
saying
going
that,
on.
and that's the same with like even actors and actresses. They're saying there should be a general categories of acting rather than you call everyone actor, and I don't agree with that because it kind of also defeats the purpose. There is going to be more of like you can see a shift in general with like. Let's say for 1 year, more males win like the acting category, and it's like it's kind of like reverse. You still want to give like equal opportunity in the sense.
So where
that,
do you think women lack equal opportunity? Yeah, no offense. I do. Maybe apparently I'm the one who misunderstands stuff. I don't really get what you're saying. So maybe to make it pragmatic, where do women not have equal opportunity, like in practice, with men compared to men, rather?
I'm not saying they don't even. It's just equal
why
opportunity
are
in the
you
sense like if
feminist?
both resumes are completely the same, for example, in a job that they're both very qualified for, like let's say marketing or something like that. If resumes are,
Sure.
you can't talk for 10 minutes. If both resumes are exactly the same, they should have equal treatment, and they
And
should.
they do.
There's like
in some
laws
sense,
now
but they're-
saying you can't discriminate against women.
Yeah,
so like
exactly.
it
In
was
some
different back
sense.
then. You're like, oh yeah, you can not hire her.
Well,
She's
that's
a
why
woman.
I'm a feminist. Some people don't support that if it's exactly the same.
Who
But
doesn't think that if you have
What do you mean?
two
Who
same-
doesn't? Who do you mean? There are some like females that still believe that like that's my terms of my definition, my understanding of how I want to perceive feminism.
You said a whole bunch of nothing.
Goes to the Civil War shit right now.
Okay. So if so I don't understand. You're saying you're a feminist because if there's two resumes, a man and a woman, they have the same qualifications, that they should both be entitled to get the job.
Yes.
Which we established that there is existing legislation
Yes.
and codified laws that say that is the case.
Yeah,
So
I support
And
that.
I asked you, where is there a lack of equal
I think
opportunity
it's more
or
an
even
attitude.
outcome that is why you justify being a feminist? Like, where is
I mean,
the
because you can
inequality?
see even in cases like in 2017, for example, there was a case in even the movie industry. There's like the top grossing films of the years, 30% of the top grossing films had no females in like the back end of things. Like
And?
So
what do you mean? So it's more of like the
that's not
process.
a
that
WNBA
like-
critique. It's because people aren't watching it.
Right.
So you're not
No.
going to get
Wait,
fairly compensated if people aren't watching your movie.
It's the back end of the filming industry. What do you mean they're not watching? The females are not in the front ends. They're even the back end of production. So 2000.
There's nothing preventing women from starring in movies.
No,
and there's
it's not
nothing
starring. I said back
preventing
end.
There's also
women-
nothing preventing them from working behind the scenes.
There is because they're hiring
What's
less
preventing
women.
them?
Actually, there's.
Then they would get
quotas
sued, and there's
shit.
actually there's
Yeah,
quotas
I
and there's
assume there might
programs to
just be
hire
less women applying.
Well, I can give you another example. 2017 was the kind of like the front run of the Me Too movement because of the big Harvey Weinstein incident.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let's go back to the movie thing.
Yeah.
So okay. Frequently, women are paid less in sporting, for example, like basketball players.
Sure.
Do you object to female basketball players being paid less than their male counterparts?
I think sporting.
Same job.
I think sporting's a really weird and interesting category because it's not just about the actual industry. It's also about the individual players. For example, like attraction, like popularity of each individual player, it deems how much they get paid, right?
And how good they are.
Oh, that as well. But like you can argue women's soccer is way worse. Let's say you want to argue that. But Alex Morgan got paid crazy numbers because she was also a very beautiful soccer player. She was crazy great at the sport. But let's say you don't like watching women's soccer, but she also got paid tons of money.
And for endorsements and whatnot.
Okay,
Yeah, brand endorsements, things like that.
You didn't
So,
really
like-
answer the question. So, okay, let's just assume here that women do get paid less than men in sporting. So
Sure.
soccer, basketball. I'm trying to think of any other, professional sports.
Tennis.
Tennis. Actually, I think they've.
Well, I have a
haven't they
question. Is there
actually
like
made
a-
it-
Don't think it like pay the same
I
amount.
think they.
Is it like
make it
how do you
the
do it?
same.
Is it like standard, like women's team make 30%, men's team make 30%, but men generate more revenue, so it's a higher 30% because the total number is bigger? Or is it like,
Okay, but for example, let's just use the basketball example. Do you object to female basketball players being paid less than male basketball players?
I want to at least acknowledge that they should at least play on the same courts, right? So there is, especially in soccer, I mostly know about soccer because I grew up playing soccer. They had to play on turf fields, for example, which everyone in soccer knows that those are way worse. They should at least get
Women have to play on turf fields
back when I played, when I
in
watched.
high school?
No.
anecdotal.
Okay.
No, it's
Okay, why don't you answer the actual question though?
should they get paid
We're
the
talking
same?
about pay, yeah. I don't know why you're bringing up turf fields. And I asked you about basketball, not soccer.
It's like okay, never mind. Yeah. No, I don't think they should get paid the same. If they
So
don't.
that's not equity then. So you're not in favor of equity.
No, that's not necessarily true because I said fairness. So if one is generating way more income, then that's
Oh,
You
you
said
could
you
have just
support
said that.
equity, not equality, though.
well, I guess you'd have to
Well,
define
that's-
what would that look
that's
like.
very different. Equality and equity there. Equality would be like
Okay, so
male,
what about in
female
so-
teams,
what-
both are the same, they get paid the same. Equity is fairness, so one generates way more revenue, they get paid more. That's equity over. How is that?
But then why did you have such an issue with movies that are getting less views, making less money?
No, they're not getting less views. That was my whole point. There's like.
So what's...
My point was, you said we were talking about how are women getting less opportunity, and I told you the top grossing films of 2017, 30% of those films had no women in the back end of things.
Let me ask you a question, Taylor.
So?
Taylor Swift, I think, earns more than probably 99% of male musicians. What do you say to that?
It's fine.
Why does she earn more than that?
Good for her.
Well, that's not fair to the 99%
marketing
of
and
male
her-
musicians who make less than
She
her.
generates revenue based off like sales and things like that.
But so
Yes,
then those
that was
movies-
that was my point with
So
the
those
female
Those
athletes.
movies generate
those
revenue based off
actors-
sales.
No, I said
Those-
back end. I didn't say front end. I keep saying this.
Back end, front end, like same. Okay, so
What?
it's the people working the cameras versus the people
Wait,
on
what do you
screen.
mean back end?
Back end of movies are the director, producers, cinematographers,
stagehand and everything.
yeah.
She's
So
saying
you are cherry picking. Like, first of all, the year 2017, it's like of all the movies that were produced, it's the top 30%. It's not the front end actors; it's the people who are in the back. Like,
It's not top
like,
30, it's
Like
the
I asked
30%.
you for your, like, I would think that it would come pretty easily to your head, like why you would be a feminist, why you think there's lack of equal opportunity in the United States
I
for
never
women.
said
and the best you could give is like, well, in this one year, like a third of movies where women were like not working the cameras, they didn't get a lot of views. So that's why I'm a feminist. Like, I like
That's very nice that you said that, but you're still misunderstanding what I was
Yeah, tell
coming
us.
across.
Tell us.
No,
I said
tell us.
respectfully,
Why don't you tell
I'm
us?
really trying, but I maybe it's
You
me.
said, why are you a feminist? I said, because of equity. I would
Okay,
want
but that's
equitable
like such a
treatment.
buzzword.
But
You
it's-
can't just say because of equity.
Yeah,
Like,
but
and they're like because equity and equity is
well,
fairness.
what are you confused about? Because you're saying like, oh, then give me an example how we're not equitable. And I'm not saying we're not equitable. Like there are.
But
still,
if you said you're a feminist because you need equity, and then you just said we're not equitable, like
no, I
what?
didn't say that. That's what.
That's what
again,
you said.
no, I
I
said
think the basketball analogy was a good one.
Wait, actually, Nick, you can pull that thing up that you sent me, Nick. This is an article, Women-Fronted Films.
Oh, but like got nominated
it, Nick?
less overall for like best categories. I think it was something like that.
Well, you referenced the year 2017. So make it bigger. Women-fronted films. Our top 3 highest-grossing movies of 2017. Last Jedi, Beauty and the Beast, and Wonder Woman topped North America's box office. So even looking up the precise year that you provided, actually in the year you provided,
this is front end. I keep
Oh.
saying.
the poor back end.
But how does that justify you being a feminist? So okay, so it's
I didn't justify this of me being. I'm telling you. When
Okay,
you
well, then let's
asked me
take a
how
step
is
back.
it unequal opportunity, I told you that in even these movies and these categories, women are not being hired. That was my whole point. That was my whole.
But what you're saying,
statistic.
women not being hired, really doesn't correlate to what you are talking about. You're talking about highest grossing films and film popularity. There's nothing in what you're saying that's like there's this systemic campaign that studios are waging to not hire women.
In the
It was.
back end.
It's
Oh,
kind.
I'm sorry, on the back end and not the front end.
The
Only on the
back
back
end.
end.
Well, it correlates in the sense because the 2017, like I was saying, was the actual the year of the Me Too movement, and this.
You're all over the place right now. You're all over the place.
Well, it was the direct shift between 2017, people's acknowledgement of that women aren't being hired in the movie industry, right?
I don't really think that you've proven that, and I don't really think that's true, and I don't really think the Me Too movement was about women not being hired in the industry.
It's
about their
not.
treatment in the industry because they were being hired, and they were getting treated poorly because they had jobs within the industry. The Me Too movement couldn't have happened if women didn't have jobs in the industry.
I mean, there's a direct correlation after the Me Too movement of the hiring of
I
women
still don't
as well.
understand the actual argument, though.
I
Okay, but
also
even
don't know what it
if I
is.
grant like okay, say in
Change that
really
split, yeah.
cushy Hollywood jobs on the back end, they're not hiring female directors for, again, I don't really even know the reason why. How does that prove that like there's not equal opportunity for women?
It's like the opportunity for women. When I said like I talked about the top grossing films. When I said 30% of like these back end top films had no women. I'm not saying
So?
even in the category of
But
like
maybe women don't want
directors.
to do that.
That's just not true.
It's like
Okay,
welding.
but
there's
but
no women in
counterpoint.
there.
That's like
okay,
saying,
let's
like-
look at early childhood education. Women make up the majority of jobs there. Women make up the majority of jobs in nursing. So you could flip that logic on your head
But
and
no,
say,
because-
well, that's sexist because there's not men, and men would want to do it because hypothetically men would want to do it.
They hire more women in those job categories because
Because
it's
more women are applying.
Yeah.
Wait, just to be clear, so it's sexist if more women get hired in a job field, and it's also sexist if too few women get hired in a job field.
No, that's not what I said at all.
But you said your issue is that not enough women are being hired on the very niche back end of studios, but you don't find issue with a majority,
So she unmuted
overwhelming
now?
majority
Has it
of
been 10
women
minutes?
being hired for jobs like nursing and early childhood education.
No, it's because women a lot of times are more like the general gender biases are associated women with these jobs, right? So like,
Well, I don't know. Gender biases is a pejorative connotation. I would say it's just your innate biology. Women have always empirically been drawn to more.
sure, that's your
profession-
opinion.
Well,
Sure,
it's not
yeah.
really
Well,
opinion.
no,
it's
it's
biological
people-oriented.
fact and,
Yeah.
and statistics and study. No, I hate studies, but it shows it. Empirical data shows that women have always gravitated towards nursing and early childhood education as opposed to, say, oil rigs and hardcore machinery work, which, by the way, if we want to bring up
Sanitation.
deaths again, workplace deaths are like upwards of 80%, if not 90% men over I think every year it's like nearly 5,000 women. It's like 400, just to bring up deaths. But that aside, I just don't really understand. So your issue that you are resting your case for feminism on, again, I asked you, like, give me your best shot as to why you're a feminist. And the best you could give
you
me
didn't
is
say that. You
and-
said
I feel like
what
they
is
could've
our
picked a better
no, she said
example.
what
Okay, then
is
give
our
me a better
unequal.
example.
What's the unequal
But
opportunity?
but
That's what
didn't
you
even-
said.
Okay, first of all, you gave an example that was false because we just said that the 2017 like,
That's
top grossing
the
films-
actresses. That's the actresses.
Okay, so why does back end film
I feel like you
production
could've went
matter
with
more
lawyer,
than front end?
Male and female lawyer. What if one makes less? I feel like that would have been a way simpler argument.
But I'm just curious why your metric for why there's
You
There's a
asked
lack
me,
of equal
You
opportunity.
said why is there a lack of? You said why is there a lack of fairness? I gave you an example of something that has a lack of fairness, and then you're like, oh, what's that? What's
'cause
what's your point of feminism?
Your example was in 1 year, the top 30% highest grossing movies only on the back end didn't have women, and that's so like niche. And then we just showed you that actually the top 3 grossing films had women on the front end, and I guarantee you if you look in 2017,
No,
the
it
percentage of
showed-
women who are holding frankly, percentage of women who are getting college degrees and probably getting preferential financial treatment from banks in terms of loans and women in business programs certainly outnumbers men. So just because you gave me one random statistic, which I don't even know if it's actually true, that doesn't negate or support your point. Like that's so irrelevant. It's like a drop in the
relevant
bucket.
to what you were asking me, my general opinion of like, oh, why do you think women have unequal opportunities? I told you.
So what societal forces are preventing women from working only on the back end in film?
In that case, it's sexism. That was my whole point.
It's sex. So how does that
I don't
work?
think a
in
lot
practice?
of women want to work as like transportation coordinators. It's like a lot of like manual labor.
So
to, like,
you're
set up-
telling me that
Well, the
that-
back end I'm talking about is not transportation coordinators. It is
talking
the
about, like,
directors.
editors and-
It is producers. It is.
like the apex jobs, like the desirable jobs.
I mean, it's like I said, it's co-producers, things like that. It
But
is.
so you think that like people are in the C-suite executive at like Paramount Studios, they're like, oh wow, this candidate looks awesome. They produce all these cool films. They have this, and that. Oh, she's a woman, so we're not going to hire her. Like you think that's realistically what's happening? And conversely, while you're focusing and you're putting the spotlight on very high-paying, high-status, cushy jobs, again, only on the back end, not the front end. What about the fact that I would argue that most of the, I would say, low-end, low-status jobs, just from sort of like an income perspective and just not a very glamorous lifestyle, right? People who are working machinery, paving the roads, stuff that they don't get any thanks for, any gratitude. Overwhelmingly, majority men, like I said, overwhelming majority workplace deaths are men. So you're fixating on the fact that like these really cushy jobs women aren't getting, but the inverse of that is that overwhelmingly men are taking up the bottom rung of jobs.
But again, I gave you one example, right? So there's many examples.
So then
This
give
was
another one.
Free Julie.
For example, like I bring this up a lot, the tech industry, for example, this startup industry, a lot of times majority are men being hired, not women.
Do we know the majority
Well, I
of
feel
who's
like women
applying?
aren't really.
Wait, hold on.
I don't know.
You mean like software engineers?
No.
You mean what? Tech industry?
The tech
That's
industry
made
is-
up of like
Coders.
it's like software engineers.
That's what they are.
The tech industry can be any
And I think that's actually that's a particularly
aerospace engineers, like you said.
but that's a particularly bad
engineering.
example because when they do studies on
majority of people even in college are.
Well, I feel like women
when
aren't men.
societies
They're not
become-
encouraged to do it, but
societies
they're not
become more
prevented.
egalitarian, particularly talking Nordic countries. Again, I don't like studies, but when you go through them, they've actually found that the more egalitarian, the more quote unquote liberal a society becomes, the less women there are who get involved in STEM fields. And the more that they naturally gravitate towards what I would argue they're biologically inclined and wired to want to do, which is like nursing, early childhood education. So the STEM argument is particularly, I think, falls flat, is particularly bad. But even if you take a step back, I don't really even think that that's true if you look at what's going on in Silicon Valley right now or any of these startup companies. And frankly, I think startups are a particularly bad example because that industry is pretty cutthroat in that you're raising money and you either make it work or you don't. There's not really room for like DEI hiring style practices. Like if you suck at your job, you suck at your job. But in all of those big corporations, they are prioritizing hiring women. They want, I mean, have you heard the term
because
women in STEM?
all the statistics are if you have diversity inclusion, you have better innovation. Every study can
Erroneous.
show you that
Erroneous.
if you have over 30% like mixed executive team, usually
Okay.
it's more successful,
So
right?
say that is true, which I
Erroneous.
don't necessarily think. First of all,
Every
you're
study
talking,
shows
but you're-
DEI if you have diversity,
Who,
equity,
who,
and
paid,
inclusion.
who paid for those studies?
Yeah, the United Nations.
A bunch of schools, a bunch of like
Affirmative
companies.
action
There's
babies.
tons
But
of
even
people who
say
show
that's,
this.
so you think that just because like there's a black person, a white person, and a brown person in a room that you're gonna have better outcomes, even if you take
Yes, because
that,
you have different markets, you have different
Okay.
point of views, different
Wait,
upbringings, different everything.
Can I ask you a question? When it comes to math, do you think that like top level like mathematicians, like a black mathematician and a white mathematician, like they're going to come to like better conclusions because one's black?
Didn't you just hear what I
Answer
said?
the question.
At an actual
Answer the
company?
question. Answer the question.
Yes, I do. I genuinely do.
Oh.
Well, that's not
That's
really
it.
how.
Okay,
That's
got
not
it.
how
Because
math works,
they
though. It's
can't-
objective.
No, if they can't solve
That's
a
not how
problem,
math works.
if they can't
It's
solve
objective.
if they can't solve something, they all have different point of
It's a
views of
yes
what
or
to
no.
look at.
even
Okay,
if I
different point of
take
view
you,
on
even
that.
if I take you at your word, right, and say that this mythical, unicorn that is diversity is so great for the workplace. Okay, say it's true. If all these corporations and studios and whatnot, which are ostensibly, I'm sure you'd probably agree, motivated by profit, right, and wanting to produce returns, and there's this magical strategy that is going to allow them to increase their profits tenfold because apparently a black mathematician is the key to all their financial woes, or hiring a female doctor or whatever is going to fix all the problems. Why would they then be sitting in the boardroom and saying, oh, we can't hire women? Oh, we can't have any women, not on the front end, but on the back end, right? Isn't that sort of a dumb approach to take to hiring?
It's because a lot of times with especially board of directors, they have someone they know. They have someone they can influence.
Okay, but that you literally just said, I mean, how does that even engage with what I just said? There's a board of directors where there's someone they know and they have influence.
She's talking. Wouldn't
Like, no, the
nepotism?
board of-
Wouldn't nepotism equally benefit men and women?
Yeah.
Like if it's just about a personal relationship.
Not necessarily, no.
So you're saying your argument is nepotism unfairly it benefits men?
I'm saying in the case of the context of what we're talking about, especially board of directors and hiring teams and things like that, a lot of times, yes, nepotism is involved in like a lot of times the hiring of a lot of these teams.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know what
Right?
that has to do with anything.
It has a lot to do with a lot of this because they, for example, if
But
it's
nepotism is not a gendered thing.
Yeah.
well,
I feel like having a diverse amount of people like in more subjective
But when you
fields
say
like
diversity-
marketing and movies makes sense.
when
But
you-
it can't be like, oh, we have all these different minds for like something very objective like math and coding.
But
there's
those-
right answers and there's wrong answers. Either it works or it
And those
doesn't.
DEI studies, the alleged studies that you're talking about, they're not actually talking, because believe me, those same institutions that are putting that out, I can guarantee you that they do not support diversity of thought. I'm sure they are part of the group of people who are pushing political correctness. And when you say diversity, you're not talking about bringing together groups of people who disagree and having actual debate. You're talking about just figurehead diversity, poster child diversity, where it's like, oh, this guy's black,
Liberals.
this person's trans, this person's this person's that. That doesn't yield any results at all. Frankly, I would almost argue, you see, why is it, it's always like the roads that are collapsing, the bridges that are collapsing, those are always the ones that have the diversity programs going on.
I do have to move things on, but why don't you each make a final point, and then we'll move things on. Do you have a response? And then Natalie goes.
Sure.
And then we'll move it on.
The diversity claim is you need at least 30% of a more diverse team in order to actually get solid response. And it is solid response as in it's a response that actually has like.
So if you're at 25, it's
He's at
nothing.
29,
It's
doesn't
like
make-
negligible.
The statistic is you at least need a 30% team, a 30% more diverse
Who made
team
the
before you.
statistic?
What is this statistic?
It's
Can I ask you a question? Would a company be considered diverse if there were no men in it?
no. You need diversity in all angles,
Oh, okay. Oh,
all viewpoints, all angles.
okay. All right. I mean, do you want to? Did you finish your point or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I just think it's funny. Every time I come on the show and I ask every feminist for like one example of an actual grievance that they would have that would justify their rationale for being a feminist, it is the most niche, anecdotal, one-off examples that is like pigeonholed to 1 year, one subset of an industry that's not even the front end of actors, but the back end of actors,
They
only
all tell
in
you
films.
That? They all tell you that? That's crazy.
They all.
Yeah, last
totally.
time I
By
was
the way,
on,
is
it was
she
the same
unmuted?
stuff.
Am I unmuted?
But I just
Yeah.
my
Silence.
last point on this, and I think this is
I'm so
my
happy.
always key issue with feminism, is that so many girls say they're feminists, but then when they're actually pressed on it, they honestly don't know why. And I think you should ask yourself why you've been so conditioned to think that you are a feminist, why you're so adamant that women need to be the larger amounts of victims
Do you
in
ever-
wartime than men. Why there's such an
Do you ever
ingrained
think about
bias
why you're
within you.
conditioned to not be a feminist?
You don't think you can be
What?
conditioned to not be a
Do
feminist? Have you ever
do you
read
ever
the
sit
news?
back and be like, why am I not a feminist?
Well, I have a question. Like the
We
whole
shouldn't have unmuted
women
me.
make 82 cents to $1, and now it's like, oh, for a white man's dollar. I don't know what that means.
That's not
But I
true.
thought it was more like they're choosing professions that, I mean, there's not
Wage
really a lot
gap
of
is a
money
myth. I don't
in
know if you want to get into
child
Wage
care
gap
or.
is.
Yeah.
You're rage quitting.
No, I was.
I know. I'm just kidding. Here.
This was a long conversation. Sorry.
I do have some follow-up questions for